world, what are we actually talking about when we say that penetration is very low in India?
Yeah, so there are only about 10 million active gym goers at any point of time in India.
10 million?
Yeah, that's 0.6% of our population.
Yeah.
The same number in the US is 22%. So there are 70 million active gym goers at any point of time in the US.
Is it too expensive? Is it a time issue? What do you think are the big deterrents?
I think it's mainly that there aren't good places to go to. And the cultural revolution of, sportsmen becoming fit, actors becoming fit has happened in the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years.
We're obviously, by far the largest player in India. But I think we are the most technically advanced fitness player in the world.
That's a pretty big claim.
And it's it's very easily verifiable as well. So
Okay.
I think it's I can make this claim with a lot of conviction.
I was having this conversation of how Flipkart kind of has become the HUL of the startup world, right? What made that magic happen, you think?
I think Flipkart has this DNA of just insane ambition. Same at Myntra as well. I think between Myntra and Flipkart, people are losing count, but there are probably 300-400 startups that have come out, including many unicorns.
300-400 out of Myntra and Flipkart.
Yeah.
What do you believe is the number one reason why some organizations, some startups fail?
I've generally seen raising too little money almost never kills the company, but too much money we have seen with the whole edtech sector, right?
Yeah.
21, 22, these guys have gazillions of dollars in their bank, and now today can't talk about any edtech startup.
There's this big debate on at this point in time that will India finally have its deep tech moment?
Yeah, I think we're at a point where it's not a choice anymore. India will either figure out its own deep tech DNA, or we will face, I think, a lot of headwinds.
A piece of advice that you have used through the course of your entrepreneurial journey that you would like to leave people with?
Anytime, especially in a startup, thinking, I know how it is done or I've arrived, that's when you start to go down. And just staying grounded, to keep learning and pretend like a 20-something, I think is the best thing I can do.
Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. Hello and welcome to the Young Turks podcast. I'm Shereen Bhan. One of my guests today has been a regular on Young Turks, I would say since about 2008. He started by trying to disrupt the fashion business when he launched Myntra. And then in 2016, he decided to focus on his other passion, which is fitness. Joining him in that journey is a colleague who's been with him now for the past 13 years. Naresh Krishnaswamy, the CEO of CULT today, joins me with Mukesh Bansal. Mukesh and Naresh, what an absolute pleasure to have you here on the program. And I was just thinking back of the time that you were first on the program, Mukesh. You just launched Myntra.
Yeah.
IIT to fashion was quite a journey even back then. But when you look back, I mean, what's the one thing that strikes you about the time that has gone by?
Yeah, I think, the journey was, I would say, probably not from IIT to fashion, but more about IIT to entrepreneurship, and fashion kind of helped make it happen. I think a lot has happened in last, 17, 18 years since I moved back to Bangalore in 2007. Right now we're shooting this in HSR layout. HSR layout at that time was like one house and then a lot of empty space, and one more house, a lot of empty space.
Right.
And this is where, we started Myntra, and there was absolutely no ecosystem to speak of. I still keep thinking of this story in the early days when we were trying to recruit people. So we somehow reached out on internet and sell something about doing this interesting company and all that, and people will agree to come for interview. And then you're coordinating on the phone, and then just 5 minutes before you're supposed to reach, phone will just switch off and they'll start responding. Once they see this is actually a house and not a company, because they're coming from Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So from there to now, where looks like people only want to work for startups or start startups. So I think come a long way.
It has come a long way, but let's talk about the call that you made to Naresh and Naresh made back to you, and how this partnership and journey started.
What do you remember of that?
Yeah, I think 2012, I had just left my job in Mumbai. I was doing investment banking, and something told me I wanted to be in the startup space in Bangalore. So I moved to Bangalore, and the last name Bansal was quite popular back then with Flipkart and Myntra. So applied to Myntra and within a matter of a few days managed to meet Mukesh, the rest of the management team, and got hired. I was a pretty junior hire back then in Mukesh's team. So I think from there managed to survive the next 13 years with Mukesh.
Survive the next 13 years.
Thrived, yeah. He had a stellar growth. I think he joined as a business analyst at that time. And I think, Myntra itself, he was pretty much leading all revenue just within 5-6 years of joining as business analyst. And I think a lot of people at Myntra, Flipkart will give him an example of, how you can grow so fast.
The
and
fast tracker.
Fast tracker, clearly, yes.
You talked about the Bansals and it's true. I mean, I was having this conversation of how Flipkart kind of has become the HUL of the startup world, right? I mean, so many startups have been spawned at Flipkart or somehow directly or indirectly linked to Flipkart. Of course, you're part of the Flipkart family in many ways as well. Why do you think, what made that magic happen, you think?
I think I will attribute to 2-3 things. And actually, I also experienced it firsthand when Myntra was acquired by Flipkart. Flipkart has this DNA of just insane ambition. Whenever in those days I will talk to Sachin and Bini, and the language they will speak about what they want to do in what time frame, I was not used to hearing that. It was pretty jarring, but also it rubs off on you. You start
and you had actually worked in the Bay Area, which is high on ambition anyway. So even for you, that was overtly aggressive.
Especially in the Indian context, right? And because there's really no ecosystem to speak of. And as a startup, you'll think about, okay, maybe you want to raise $5 million, $10 million. But these guys talking about raising $1 billion in 2014, taking on Amazon and so on. So I think a lot of people who join Flipkart, one is that ambition rubs off on. Second thing is Flipkart also was able to attract the top caliber talent. At some point, Flipkart was in the news nearly every day, probably too much. So we had a just influx of talent, both from India and from US. When I was there building my team, I was able to recruit a lot of people from Bay Area who quit their job at Google, Facebook and other places, moved back to India. So I think this whole talent density combined with that, ambition and growth, at some point, people start thinking of, if they can do it, I can do it also. And many of them, since then done that, Same at Myntra as well. I think between Myntra and Flipkart, people are losing count, but there are probably 300-400 startups that have come out, including many unicorns.
300-400 out of Myntra and Flipkart. Yeah. That's the last number that you're working with at this point now. That's a phenomenal story. That is an incredible story.
I think it's also the culture. For someone who's not a founder or not, even a very senior member in these companies, first is the empowerment. You get to do things right from 0 to 1, which you would do as a startup, and you're not vilified for failure, and just the exposure that you get to the founders and other senior members gives you the confidence that what I've done here is probably something that I can take and do a startup of my own. So that's why a lot of young folks from these companies, 20 to 25 years old, end up starting towards their late 20s. So I think for me, the culture is
But it's getting younger and younger. Forget the late 20s. Now it's like, pre-teens are starting out.
I want to add, one story on that. So in 2015-16, people started in a key position, etc. started, leaving Myntra, starting their own company, and we were not able to retain. So Ashutosh, who was my co-founder there, we were joking ki, basically it's our fault. People come here and then see if these guys can do it, we can surely do better, and then leave to start their company.
But that as I said, that's an incredible story in so many ways, and we've seen that develop into this ecosystem that we're talking about today. But let's cut then to 2016 and your decision to actually get into the fitness space. You've been around the block, Mukesh. What made you think that this could be a viable business opportunity in India? I know you were deeply passionate about it. We'll talk about that. But what made you think that you could convert this passion into a seriously viable business proposition?
Right. First, different thought process in 2016 compared to 2007 and before. Earlier, the passion was entrepreneurship. I just wanted to have my own thing, and I just will not feel very comfortable
working for somebody else.
More than that, just the organization have certain way of doing things, certain pace of doing things, and I feel very suffocated in that. So earlier it was, fashion happened accidentally, but it was about I just need to start on my own. 2016, I could think about things more peacefully and really ask the question, what do I really like? And, fitness, health in general, education, these kind of things, came up. Second thing, I could see signs around me at that time, which has become very pronounced now, is people were starting to talk about health. People were starting to get egg whites and not egg yellow, and avocado was just coming to India now. You can't go to cafe without avocado toast, and so on. People were talking about 10,000 steps at that time, trying to get some kind of tracker, and I could see all these signs, and so I felt this is one area where the country is starting to wake up to this culture of fitness, and there's really absolutely nothing organized of quality available. I also felt, coming from technology background, we can do this business very differently. So it was a great combination of both a personal interest and a passion. I thought I'll really enjoy, which I did in retrospect, and also realization that eventually people will wake up to health and fitness, which now we see all around us.
And of course, through COVID, we saw that being accelerated significantly. I'll get to that in just a second. But I remember our conversation, and this is pre-COVID, I think, and you were seriously into longevity and biohacking and all of that. And that seems to be like the tech bro thing to do at this point in time, but you were ahead of the curve in many ways. So are you still as deeply passionate about it?
Right. I think this is reminding me of, I was talking to a very well-known scientist in Caltech. In fact, he was on my podcast. He was saying, the way he drives his career is he gets into an area when it's not popular, and he does everything he can, and when everyone starts coming in, he gets out of that.
So you're out of it now.
In some ways that's what's happening to me in longevity. I have studied science of longevity for the last 10 plus years. I have connected pretty much everyone who's involved in this field, tried all kind of experiments on myself. I generally have a pretty high risk tolerance, so I was able to inject something, pop up some pill and all that. But eventually I realized that in the space of longevity, fundamentals, which we have known all along for thousands of years, sleep really well, take care of your emotional health, have some very close, nurturing relationships in your life, meditate, eat less, move. It doesn't require, all this, shortening your telomeres or staying in hyperbaric oxygen therapy for an hour and all that.
So you don't have a oxygen chamber?
No, I have few things, but I don't use them, a lot. I think if I am able to sleep 8 hours every day and spend an hour to 2 hours in the gym every day, I think that pretty much takes care of everything I need for my health now.
So what is the deal now? I mean, is it a quest for immortality? I mean, what do you think is driving this biohacking craze that we're seeing across the board today?
I think 2-3 things. Just personally for me, it has changed, but right now it's about just feeling great every day. But I think what is driving in general interest in longevity is, first of all, people are living longer. Today, even if you don't do anything, just have access to good medical care, you will live to 80, 85. If you do few things right, you can live to 90, 95. So I think that awareness has increased. Then we have some of these evangelists like Brian Johnson, who was on my podcast, Andrew Huberman, and Peter Attia, and so on. These people have also made the science of what's happening in longevity very popular. People are able to consume
and built an empire.
Well, empire part is questionable. Very few of them. The whole, you'll be surprised how little the business of longevity is. 2-3 years ago, I very seriously thought about starting a longevity business, a longevity center. I spent almost a year talking to a lot of people, but it's ultra niche. It's something, sounds very cool because you can talk about somebody's trying to be immortal. That's very newsworthy. Yeah. Everyone gets curious. But first of all, I don't think, from what I understand, we don't know a single thing which can extend human lifespan beyond 110 years. That's the absolute upper limit.
I remember you telling me when we last met that penetration is still very, very low. Tell the world, what are we actually talking about when we say that penetration is very low in India?
Yeah, so there are only about 10 million active gym goers at any point of time in India.
10 million?
Yeah, that's 0.6% of our population.
Yeah.
The same number in the US is 22%. So there are 70 million active gym goers at any point of time in the US. Even if you take a developing country, it's at minimum 5%. Countries like, China's not developing, but China's at 5%, Brazil's at 5%. So the headroom for growth is just immense. I can't see.
So why do you think we're 10 million and 0.6% versus 5 or 22? Is it that we don't want to be active, or is it that we don't have places to go to? Is it too expensive? Is it a time issue? What do you think are the big deterrents?
I think it's mainly that there aren't good places to go to. There aren't that many good gyms around, and the cultural revolution of sportsmen becoming fit, actors becoming fit has happened in the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years. So I think that wave is ahead of us, and it has to begin with somebody creating good quality supply that people want to go to. Everywhere we open gyms, this is what we see. I mean, when we open a gym, we see that the market is expanding. There are more people in that locality that are taking up fitness for the first time. So most of these other countries, I think the infrastructure was built, schools had big parks, colleges had very functional gyms. I don't think any of our, educational institutions also have that. So I think...
What, the IITs didn't invest in this?
The IIT gym, was less spoken about.
But that a great, sports facility. But just to add to this, right? Yeah. But see, Shereen, if you go back 30, 40 years, India by and large was quite fit because our lifestyle was very different. Snacks were not available readily. Dessert you will have only around festivals on a special occasion. There was a culture of morning walks, yoga. Pretty much every township. Evening also after dinner, if you go to small town, people will go for a walk and literally, and people were thin. If you just look at, old Bollywood movies and see, not focus on Amitabh Bachchan or, Dharmendra, but in the background, everyone is thin. You will be hard pressed to find someone who is overweight or does not look fit because that's how we were. And then, in 90s, with the economic development happening, suddenly I think the lifestyle changed for our country very fast in one generation. And we had access to all kind of, soft drinks and simultaneously internet and social media happened. So people
became less active as well.
Less active and consuming, this bad food pretty much throughout the day. People are, I think, just realizing that, now if you're going to engage in that kind of lifestyle, you also need to figure out a way to take care of everything else if you really want to have a forget lifespan, even a good health span, which is, very important.
No, absolutely. It is very important. But, let's continue to build on this story of what it's actually going to take to build this out, because you're in it for the long term. You're in it for the long run. You've seeded it. But how long before you start to see a perceptible shift in the numbers?
I don't think it'll take too long. I mean, it takes probably, 2 or 3 big players to, actually open a meaningful number of gyms and it will begin, of course, with the metros and then extend to tier 1.
So there's 700 today of CULT fitness centers across the country.
700 gyms across the country. Hopefully in another 5 to 6 years, we can take that to, 2,000 gyms across the country. So again, it's not going to be like, e-commerce that just booms in a few years. It's not that kind of an industry. But steadily
you can't blink it your way or Zepto your way to it.
hyper scale your way, unfortunately. But steadily over the next decade, I'm convinced. I mean, I can't see a future where India's fitness penetration is 0.6% because, I think there'll be like extinction and survival risks 20 years down the line if people aren't fit and this kind of a lifestyle continues.
Let's continue to talk about the journey and what it's taken for you to actually get to the point that you are here, and then we'll talk about the future. And there's been a fair degree of consolidation. You've played consolidator, whether it is with Golds or some of the other players that you took under your fold. Is that done for now? Is there anybody else left at this point in time of any reasonable scale and size that you have the appetite to pick up?
Unfortunately, no. In fitness space, there is really no meaningful size organized player left. Maybe 1 or 2 very regional chains in a particular city and so on. And if stars align, I think we'll be pretty keen to consolidate. Like our whole thought process, CULT is provide standardized experience, which is heavily tech-powered throughout the country. So it becomes very simple value proposition that I buy CULT Pass, I can walk into any gym, I have access to variety of workouts, lots of gyms, pretty close to where I live. So for that, building, acquiring gym chains and adding definitely makes sense for us from a strategy point of view, but they're very few and far in between. I really hope, while everyone is building AI companies these days, some people need to build fitness companies as well, because even if we take, our number from 700 to 2,000, that's not enough. I think India needs probably 20,000 high quality gyms. So hopefully this industry also sees more entrepreneurial action at some point.
Well, speaking of the short-term goals as well as the long-term vision, I want to ask the two of you, how ready is India and specifically the Indian market for a company like PureFit and CULT?
So I think building business and creating real value requires compounding over a long period of time. I think companies like CULT, which is, becoming profitable now and standing on our feet, in some ways, now the destiny is in our hands. We can afford the luxury of thinking long-term. We don't need to do very short-term things just to impress some investors or somehow try to get a funding. Then I think we are not alone. There are many other companies as well. I keep quoting, two examples to everyone, both Paytm and Zomato. Zomato took 10 years to go from $0 to $1 billion valuation from, I think, 2008 to 2018. And now, everyone knows where their valuation is, So a lot of value creation for companies happen the second decade of existence, third decade of existence. I think the entrepreneurs need to just navigate that first 10 years, get to a point where you're self-sufficient, you can really take long-term calls. And I think a lot of companies in India which are well poised to do that. And I'm sure a lot of them will, every time they do 10, 15, 20 years, they'll end up on Young Turks, which is going for a very long period of time. But I think we're well poised for that.
So, it's almost getting to that decadal point as far as CULT is concerned and PureFit is concerned. But you talked about Zomato. And that's a pretty significant investment that Zomato made. They have, about 6.5% at this point in time in the company. How did that come about? Who called whom? Did you call Dippy or did Dippy call you?
I don't exactly recall, but 2021 was a pretty, crazy time. Zomato had gone public a year before and stock market received really well. We, on the other hand, our gyms were shut down in COVID, but we are building these online assets, which were doing extremely well. So we were thinking more and more digital first in those times. Zomato had acquired this business Fitso. At some point, I think they're thinking of building this whole franchise around health, fitness, and so on. But by 21, I think their strategy was starting to become clearer that doubling down on food delivery, grocery, etc. will make more sense. So Fitso became a oddball, in the portfolio.
Yeah.
And that's when I think Dipinder and I talked. For us, it made a lot of sense because it will give us access to all the swimming pools, badminton courts in NCR area where our penetration was low at the time. Zomato gets to, hive off that business, which was not fitting in the overall strategy. So it was a great win-win.
You brought up COVID. And that's what I want to talk to the two of you about. I mean, it was an existential moment for companies like yours. You didn't know when the lockdowns would lift, whether people would actually, even if they lifted, whether people would feel comfortable coming back into gyms and so on and so forth. What was going through your mind at that point through the course of that 2.5 years where nobody quite knew how this was going to play out?
Yeah, I think few fortunate things in our journey. One is I think we had raised enough capital to be able to survive that time, and that's critically important. We had in fact just closed around, I think, days before the lockdown. So that was very fortuitous. And the second thing was that we had the vision to build digital fitness even before the lockdown came. So sometime in 2019, our product team started working on an online fitness program. Just as an experiment, and the moment the lockdown hit, we just had that code base ready to just launch that. So that was a second piece of, I think, both good luck and good wisdom. So I remember, I think for most of, the first part of COVID, we were quite excited because we could realize that this whole pivot to online fitness could happen. We started seeing crazy numbers on our online fitness programs. At one point, we had 1 million users using that. So for us, yes, it was a big disruption, but we quickly shifted from, okay, maybe we can't run our gyms right now, but this online fitness program seems very exciting. Maybe there's a new thing to be built here, a new way fitness could be imagined.
A couple of more things to add to. See, for me, I've been around startups now 27 years, I think, around 22, 23 years at that time, which means I had seen this crisis multiple times. So there's almost like a built-in muscle. A crisis happens and different part of brain gets activated. I remember sending an email to a whole company in March saying, never let a crisis go to waste was the title. And it was very clear for us, okay, this is a major crisis. Business has gone from $100 million revenue to zero. What do we do now? And what we needed to now take, bold decisions, bold actions. So we shut down a lot of things. We hived off some businesses. We started new things. We acquired a lot of gyms. So instead of sitting idle, we took that as a license to really clean up. And we were making some mistakes in 2018-19, but those mistakes were hiding. No one's looking at those. So this was time to just clean up everything. Just kill all the mistakes and double down on what was really working. So in the retrospect, I don't think we let that crisis go to waste. We came out, much stronger. Other thing I want to, share, which is, Naresh mentioned, we just closed the round days before. We signed the round few days before, then the lockdown started. The round was still going to take 3-4 weeks before money comes in. And a lot of investors, get spooked in this situation.
Yeah, I would have imagined, yes.
In fact, one of the investors did back out, but Temasek, who was leading the round, they were very calm throughout the whole thing. They said, nothing really changes for us. We believe in your thesis, what you have done. One day a pandemic will get over. We are taking a 10-year lens. So nothing really changes. So, Vishesh, who was leading the deal at the time, and Temasek, kudos to them. I was very impressed, with that just level-headed, calm thinking. Sometimes VCs get a lot of flack, for being short-term or, being very opportunistic. But there's an example where they stayed true to their word. They have signed the deal and they, nothing fundamentally had changed. And there was also, if they backed out, I think we would have probably a different story by now.
Yes, it would have been a very different story to tell. But, here's an example where one of the VCs that you were engaging with had a long-term perspective on what this business could deliver 10 years on. You're now going to be talking to investors who will want to know what the story is going to be 10 years on, but are also going to want to know what is going to be the story 10 quarters on. So, Mukesh, as you look at a very real shot at Dalal Street, and I guess it's a matter of what, about a couple of months or a year at best? Yeah,
about a year or so, thereabout. So I think we definitely plan to list in 26. See, for us, our story is now very easy. It's a probably easiest, fundraise I think, I would ever do in my life. We are
the easiest fundraise you'll ever do is going to Dalal Street.
I think so, because look, we are by far the largest fitness player in the country. The only large-scale organized player. We are profitable. We have been consistently growing 30 to 40%. And given the fitness penetration Naresh talked about, as that number goes from 0.6% to 5%, most of the consumers will come to us. So we have this, 30-35% compounding almost given for next 10 years, as long as we continue to execute well. We have nearly 1 million subscribers today. They spent among them 5 million hours every month. These are all high value consumers. We have their attention for an hour every day, which is a very valuable asset. We are able to build this whole cult products range around them. I'm pretty much today wearing all cult. Yeah. We use the slogan, I'm cult. So I'm literally cult today. But this has become 1/3 of our business. The performance apparel footwear is a very large TAM. So we are able to expand our TAM. We are able to sell all these products to cult users. We collect huge amount of data, which is enabling us to bring about new lines of business, so on. So I think for us, it's very, very easy. Just heads down execution, keep growing 30%, keep improving bottom line every year. And I think investors will. I would like to imagine, anyone who cares about health or health-oriented business, this will be a no-brainer choice for them.
A no-brainer choice. He's making 30% year-on-year growth sound easy.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do the heavy lifting.
I missed a small detail about how these guys execute, but rest is easy.
So what is it going to take to deliver on 30% growth year-on-year?
No, I think like Mukesh mentioned, all the strategic and long-term things are lining up in the right direction for us. It comes down to, steadfast execution. Not making too many mistakes, not repeating the same mistakes. I think
What have been some of the big mistakes that you have now fixed and that you hope you're not going to repeat?
Yeah, I think at some point we did probably expand a little too rapidly pre-COVID. I think we went into too many cities at the same time, distracted a little bit of focus. Sometime pre-COVID, we were dabbling in multiple businesses as well. I think now we are we're pretty clear on what we need to do for the next 10 years. So it just comes down to just keeping that same level of rigor.
Okay,
and
so you're not bound by any confidentiality yet because you haven't filed yet. So you're at the liberty to share more freely the numbers. To Mukesh's point about this being a no-brainer, here's your elevator pitch to everyone who's watching on why, on the back of numbers, you believe that this is a no-brainer.
Again, the fitness industry is bound to grow. 0.6% penetration is completely unsustainable. India is going to see this wave. All the signs point to it, and we are the only organized player in the market today. And we are building this for the long term. We have great long-term investors.
What's the top line currently?
We're currently north of 250 million, growing at 30-35%, profitable. So I think meaningful scale, great brand presence across the country. Customers love us. Everywhere we open a new gym, it's successful. So I think, and our products range is coming along really well. We have the customer base that buys these products for whom it's designed. And as one business grows, the other one will grow with it.
Shereen is preparing us for the road show.
Yeah, exactly. So and I think the assumption that you're going to continue to see people get onto this bandwagon will ensure that you deliver on the kind of growth numbers that you deliver on. But one of the issues that you talked about was too much of expansion too soon and too much of diversification too soon. So as you look at where you are today, I mean, you're, footwear, apparel, fitness equipment as well. So what do you see in terms of ancillary revenue? What do you see that part of the story building out into?
Look, the entire, first of all, fortunately, both Naresh and I worked for a fashion company before, so we know a little bit about this. In fact, build a lot of original brands in Myntra, HRX, where Hrithik, watching us over.
I know,
here.
Quite literally watching over you.
So, we started HRX brand with him in 2011, which is now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the largest, brands in fitness.
D2C brands, yes.
In the country. So we have that, experience. The addressable market for athleisure is huge, and as the fitness active lifestyle aware is increasing, the demand for those products is increasing. International brands have not done great in India. Most of them have not invested, not built products for India. Price points continue to be very expensive. So yes, top 5 million households may consider buying, Adidas, Nike, etc. But someone who has a 2,000, 3,000 rupee budget for a quality shoe, and same for apparel, there is no branded play available. So that's our opportunity. The TAM for entire athleisure equipment space is almost 5-6 times bigger than the TAM we see for the gym goers. So we think over next 3-4 years, the more than half our revenue will be coming from these lines. We have few other things.
More than half of your revenue?
Yeah, it's already 1/3.
Okay.
It was 0 5 years ago. It's 1/3 now, while the whole business still growing. So, we are seeing nearly 100% growth for product business in a much larger TAM.
So you could be replicating the Myntra story in many ways.
In some ways, yes, it's a very focused brand play as opposed to distribution and a lot of brands. But that experience definitely comes in handy. And I think we're right time in right place. I think we're also growing at the right pace, not trying to grow too fast, because building brands require you to be very patient, build it slowly.
So, in terms of investments, because as you build out the apparel side of the business, the equipment side of the business, etc., and grow your stores, what are we talking about in terms of CapEx? What would annual CapEx for you perhaps look like?
Yeah, today it would be in the 100 crore range, but eventually, see, the gym business is profitable and eventually will start generating cash. So, long term, I think the gym business will generate enough cash that we can invest back in the products business. So from that perspective, I don't think our capital requirement over a long period of time is very high. And then that's what, that's the attractiveness of a gym business. Once you get it right, it is something that, generates a very meaningful amount of cash. And that should hopefully over time start paying for its own CapEx and fund the other business as well. And of course, during the course of our public listing, we will raise primary capital as well. And that should stand us in good stead.
Yeah, I think other very interesting aspect of this business is while we do 100 crores of our own CapEx, we have a large franchisee business now, and the franchisees, they are investing between 150 to 200 crores every year in building out the footprint. So huge leverage. For every dollar we spend, we get $2 from entrepreneurs in different cities, and that is accelerating as well. So our reliance on having to do own capex is reducing significantly. Most of our expansion is now coming through franchisee partners.
So on the ancillary side, whether it's apparel or it's fitness equipment and so on and so forth, the manufacturing ambition and the manufacturing aspiration of actually doing that here in India, are we talking a year on, 5 years on? What's the plan there?
Well, our DNA is we are a consumer lifestyle brand, and that will continue our strength. We need manufacturing partners. Today, an apparel footwear, most of our manufacturing is already shifted to India. And we are quite impressed with the quality of products we are able to get at a pretty reasonable price, which we are able to pass along to our consumers. Hardware, when it comes to things like treadmills, stationary bike and so on, there's still a lot of reliance on China. But, this whole push towards Make in India, various PLI schemes and so on, as well as some restrictions on import from China, the ecosystem, the manufacturing ecosystem in India is starting to react to that. We are in conversation with a lot of manufacturing partners who are thinking of setting up these plants and so on. I hope in next 1 to 2 years, this come to fruition and we are able to shift most of our manufacturing for this hardware product also to India. That'll be great for the country, great for us, and I think great for consumers as well.
As you look at the execution roadmap, what are the biggest challenges? I would imagine that the whole real estate piece is going to be one of the crucial aspects, getting the location right, making sure that you, get the price right as well in terms of real estate costs, etc. The right kind of people to deliver on the consistency of performance. On the execution roadmap, what are the hardest pieces to fix?
Yeah, and I mean, in the gym business, as you rightly pointed out, like just finding the right locations consistently and, across different cities, across different markets will always be, the hardest problem. And in a gym business, yes, location is everything, just like any other retail business. If you get the rent right, you get the location right, things kind of take care of themselves. So putting in the hard yards, understanding markets, having a very deep network of real estate consultants around the country. We also deploy fairly advanced analytics to know exactly where the location of the gym should be down to the pin, right? Even if you get the street a little bit wrong, that can have certain dynamics with respect to demand. So I think real estate always the number one most important thing.
That's interesting. But I'm curious to know, because you said that, you bet on the fact that tech could disrupt this business as well. Now, for somebody who's watching, like in a gym business, like what does technology really have to do, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, the location, for example, is, something that we use fairly advanced analytics on. We have data on, in every market, what's the population, what is the paying potential, what income brackets do people exist in, what kind of, interest they have, how many people are likely to be interested in, joining a gym. What's the retail landscape? There's like hundreds of variables that go in that give us pretty much a pin location that this is the ideal place. Now, after that, you have to find a site that's exactly on that pin location. But getting this right versus wrong has a 6-7 year impact on the gym. You're investing multiple crores in capex over there. That decision on where to open the gym is ultra critical. So as much technology as you can throw at that, you should, because that's a super important decision, right? Besides that, all of our gyms are used through an app. You have to book your session, show up, you can see the report of the workout you did, you can connect with other members on the app, etc. So there's all of this technology that's just what looks like a very, mundane industry. It brings a lot of, freshness to it, brings a lot of community angle to it. So I think technology's impact on, fitness can't be understated. I think one of the reasons why it's not, grown as fast as it needed to before as well is because nobody had thought of investing so deeply in technology for fitness.
Right. And there is, a lot of complexity in the business. So every day we have 200,000 people who come to gym every single day. Today, by the time day is done, 2 lakh people would have worked out in our gyms. We conduct about 3,000 group classes every day. Every class starts dot on time. Our trainers as well as members know who exactly in that class. They'll all have, the assigned spot. You see the numbering on the floor.
Yeah.
So all of this complexity, without technology cannot be managed. The reason we are able to run flawless operations across a variety of cities, across 700 centers, is because of all the investment that have done the technology. And now it's really starting to pay off. We have CCTV cameras in all gyms. We have AI which analyze the footage to
I was
gauge.
waiting for that. There had to be AI. There had to be a mention of AI coming in.
I think, I'm curious to see how you're planning to bring AI to your show. That's going to happen. But for us, we are able to generate a lot of insights. We can gauge now the quality of the class and the energy from the video footage, whether the floor was cleaned between session or not. Again, AI figures it out, generates the alert. A lot of safety mechanism we are putting in place. Use a lot of AI. So, earlier the CCTV cameras were only there for, security purpose. But now we are able to really improve quality of experience by having, AI automatically analyze these feeds.
Okay. So, since you are positioned as a consumer lifestyle company, that gives you a wider canvas to play with. What do you aspire to beyond what you've already done, beyond the diversifications that you've already done? Where do you believe you still have the right to play and eventually the right to win?
See, we are obviously, by far the largest player in India, but I think we are the most technically advanced fitness player in the world. There's nobody in the world who runs a fitness business who is anywhere close to the kind of technology we have.
That's a pretty big claim.
It's very easily verifiable as well. So I think it's I can make this claim with a lot of conviction.
Okay, how do we verify this?
Just have somebody look at the large players like Planet Fitness. We acquired Golds and we know what kind of technology we got from them and so on. Most of the gyms are very traditional businesses, build one store at a time or franchisee operations, and technology at best is some outsourced software you throw in to manage your operations. We have built technology from ground up for this business. But whereas going with that is the largest fitness player in the world is valued about $10 billion.
Okay.
It's not too far off. I think another 10 years of solid execution. I think our aspiration at this point is to be the largest, most valuable fitness company anywhere in the world. And I think with our DNA, we dominate this category so strongly in a country as large as India, where fitness just starting to happen. So that compounding is given for us. We'll continue to double down on our investment in tech, especially in AI. I think AI is fundamentally changing our business. And I don't think there's going to be, any player who will have that kind of technical know-how. It's just eccentric. All of us, we had tech background. So for us, it was very natural to use technology in everything we do from day, one. We were not fitness trainers or, traditional business. We just want to build, some gym chain to, make some money. But we really wanted to solve for healthy lifestyle at a very granular level. And now I think those things are starting to compound. So ambition, yes, to be the most valuable fitness company in the world in 10 years maybe.
The most valuable fitness company in the world in the next 10 years. Would that potentially even lead into things like food and so on and so forth? The aspect of community building, your community building online, could you look at community building offline as well? There's a rage now across countries where you're seeing gyms being converted into bars and so on and so forth, minus the alcohol. Yeah. But are those things that you're considering?
Yeah, I think overall our broader purview will continue to anything related to healthy lifestyle. But from looking at the lens of, fitness first, we want gym goers to be extremely happy and think, they are taken care of. And then all the ancillary things we can build around that. Some we may build on our own, some may be acquisition, some may be very deep partnership. And we'll continue to be open to it. I think we don't have a grand plans around expansion to particular areas. As Naresh mentioned, we are maybe, too much ahead in the clouds. I think before pandemic, we are doing food business. We had a meditation app, meditation centers, primary care clinic, and so on. So somewhere I think that's in the DNA. We want to be healthy lifestyle provider, but also be a lot more, I think, hopefully a lot more informed and savvy about how we go about building that in pacing it out so that, we are not taking undue risk and not compromising the core asset.
Yeah. So don't bite more than you can chew at this point in time. That certainly seems to be the mantra. So, as and when you do start the road shows, I mean, how is the company preparing itself for that eventuality of heading to Dalal Street? I mean, in terms of governance, in terms of how you're structured organizationally, are there likely to be any changes that you're looking at to be IPO ready?
I think we started work on this almost a year back. So I think most of the heavy lifting is done now. I think.
How much do you lift, by the way? Do you lift? Since we're talking about heavy lifting.
I mean, I work out a few times.
We're in the gym, Shereen. We can all try it right now.
This is verifiable. This will be these
That's
claims will be verifiable.
Yeah. So I think what's very important when you're going to become a public company, start behaving like that a year and a half before at least, right? Because it's not just the event of going public. You also need to stay public and do the right things over a very long period of time. So fortunately, we've been working on it for a while, and I think things like company structuring, governance, all of that is something that we've already put in place. So I think from here on, I think it comes down to figuring out what's the right timing from the business and the market point of view.
Mukesh, having worked previously, then done Myntra, now here at CULT, is there one specific thing that you've done differently in light of the previous experiences that you believe you're proud of how you've executed maybe differently or thought differently about business?
I think the thing I've done differently here is, one is, as mentioned, align more with something that I'll truly enjoy and using that as an axis of choice versus that a lot of businesses available, and there are many things one can do to build a large business. But so I think really doubling down on passion was one thing, and which is why working at CULT continues to be very interesting for me. Continue to learn about new fitness formats and so on. Other thing that I think we're doing different after pandemic is we are really focused. Today, I think, at least in my professional career, I don't know we were ever this focused to exactly who we are, what is our business, what are the business metrics, and really starting to learn how to think long term. We are very comfortable now having 1 year conversation, 5 year conversation, even 10 year conversation. And for me, like that transition, we've all heard Jeff Bezos keep saying, it's day one. I've also repeated that like a parrot in the past, but never truly understood what it means. I think we're now finally starting to realize what that means.
But, he comes in every Wednesday. Is that something to look forward to or something to dread?
No, I mean, definitely look forward to because, it's very helpful to have someone who's not involved in the day-to-day who can give you a vantage point from the outside. Right? As a CEO who operates, I can get lost in the details sometime, but it's great to have somebody who has deep context on the business. So it's not somebody just coming in cold and commenting on the business. Exactly. So deep context on the business, but also a vantage point that's removed from yours. So
are you enjoying this more, that you actually don't have to get your hands as dirty as he does, and you can kind of step back and navigate and guide and steer?
I actually am enjoying it, this role, quite immensely. One, it's enabling me to stay really connected with the business. But in the past, I've always desired for myself ability to step out of the business and think deep, which I was not able to do. In this role, it's kind of automatically built in. But even just, personally and emotionally, the CULT is kind of a happy place for me. Some of the other things I'm involved in, the early stage, all the early stage pain is there, a lot of uncertainty and so on.
As you look back today, do you feel that you find yourself more comfortable talking about your vulnerabilities, talking about things like anxiety, and so on and so forth, things that you perhaps, when you were running Myntra, would not have been able to do?
No, absolutely 100%. I think even when I was running Myntra, I think I was, at least my co-founders, was able to share all the anxiety vulnerabilities, I think pretty easily. But I think, since I've just gone back to, getting involved in something very early stage, and this happened, when we started CureFit as well. It's like when companies start to do well, you forget, how hard first few years are. And I've been around startups for now a long period of time. But again, what we are doing at Nurix, it's just a struggle every day. And I keep thinking no one in their sane mind should ever start a company. Just 4 or 5 months ago, finished my third book called Startup Code. I have a whole chapter on why startups fail. And when I was working on the chapter, I came up with like almost 25, different reasons that I have to pare it down to 10, which I talked about in the book. But yeah, it's insanely difficult. One thing, I personally not like at all is for every successful entrepreneurs, there are, I think, 20 equally good entrepreneurs who did not catch the lucky break or didn't find the right investor or were little ahead of their time or little behind their time.
Yeah.
And, the price they pay is just lost to the world. No one is aware of those. But that's also part and parcel of, any successful entrepreneur could very easily be that person. And that, I think, the more we talk about that and more people understand, I think entrepreneurship is a great adventure. But every adventure comes with its own risk profile. Things go wrong, sometimes horribly wrong. And I think people understanding that will make the ecosystem that much more healthier.
No, and I'm glad that you bring this up. But, as you were researching the book, as you've been speaking with your peers, as you've been speaking to other founders, etc., what do you believe is the number one reason why some organizations, some startups fail?
Depend on which stage. I think first 2 years is primarily founder dynamics. Like, you start and 6 months into it, you start fighting with the founders, and year down line, it's like either you or me, and the company goes away. Second big reason which happens, raising too much money. I've generally seen raising too little money almost never kills the company, but too much money we have seen with the whole edtech sector, right?
Yeah.
21, 22, these guys have, gazillions of dollars in their bank, and now today, can't talk about any edtech startup. Because what happens is, when you get so much money, you just start making all these foolish moves and there's nobody to stop you. You feel you are invincible. So these are, I would say, top of my list.
There's this big debate on at this point in time that will India finally have its deep tech moment? Yeah. Is this likely to be the period when India will have its deep tech moment? And I'm not suggesting that it's easy or, we've got the ingredients in place, but how do you look at it? Do you believe that we're closer to that eventuality?
Yeah, I think we're at a point where it's not a choice anymore. India will either figure out its own deep tech DNA, or we will face, I think, a lot of headwinds from economic growth point of view. All the easy opportunities are already taken. And deep tech requires a very different DNA that Indian startup ecosystem has learned so far. It's about, find some angle, get to product market fit in 6 months or 12 months, start scaling. Deep tech requires a lot of patience. You need to work on your product for 3-4 years. You need to partner with academia because deep tech requires deep IP.
Yeah.
You also need investors with a lot of patience who can look at things long term. You need governments to create that level playing field and some protection, because someone is building a chip to compete with NVIDIA. I think it can unlock huge amount of opportunities. And given that we are heading into this, very polarized world, I think it's almost an existential question. If we are going to be dependent on foreign technology, will we be paying rent to all of these guys like we do for Google and Facebook so far? And tomorrow it'll be all the LLM companies, and that can't end well for the country.
Within the company, to come back to what's happening at CULT, and many of your peers here have codes in terms of what employees should be doing as far as health and so on and so forth is concerned. How health obsessed are you internally as an organization?
Yeah, quite a bit. I think it's a core part of our culture. My own journey, I think I was patchy with my fitness before I joined CULT, but the last 7 years, it's been extremely consistent. So that's one of the values to be had by working at CULT. There are so many inspiring people around you. There are so many experts in office at any point of time who can tell you, stuff about your nutrition, your sleep, your workout. And then we have very active community of, sports as well going on in the company every week. The groups of employees going out and playing some sport or the other.
And sometimes it gets out of hand as well. We have this annual Fit Games thing where, whole company participate in a lot of, 2 day of, or actually multiple days of competition, so on. And the week after, some guys coming with, with a cast, bruise,
it's
banded.
That competitive, is it?
Yeah, people just,
You talked about how you would aspire to make this the world's most valuable health and fitness company. That's the ambition that you're working with. What do you believe will be the biggest opportunities along the way? Not over the next few months, but over the next 5 to 10 years. And what do you believe you will need to be mindful of as the key risks?
Yeah. I think there will be opportunities for international acquisition. I think at some point, we'll get to a point where we have massive footprint here as well as highly differentiate, tech platform. I think there'll be assets around the world that we can consider. So that's one big opportunity.
From setting up actual gyms outside of India.
Yeah. Or acquiring, the traditional gym chains and completely transforming, with the whole now increasingly AI-powered stack that we are building.
So the global ambition is what? A couple of years on, or it could be more immediate?
Look, we were building gyms in Dubai in 2019. Pandemic stopped that. So it could be as early as 2 years. I think we'll think about this deliberately. There will be many opportunities to get into adjacent business as our the consumer franchise goes from 1 million people to 2-3 million people. I think this is the most valuable captive audience in the country. So there will be, I think, opportunities coming our way to sell all kind of product and services. And I think the challenge for us is going to be to stay really disciplined, not try to artificially grow, 50-60%, not do a bad acquisition or keep launching, new product lines. For us, thinking about currently we are nearly about 2,000 crores. So only building things which can at least add 1,000 crores of top line in the next 5 years and not something which is, exciting and interesting, but adds only 100 crores, avoiding those kind of things. Just staying disciplined and play the long-term game, I think will put us in pretty good shape.
So what are the numbers that you're working towards?
Yeah.
What's on the vision board?
Yeah, I think like Mukesh mentioned, just steadily growing at 30-35% for a long period of time, as opposed to, having 3 years of 100% growth and then tapering down. So for me, it's not about like, what we grow for the next few years. Can we build an engine that continuously grows over the next decade for 30-35%? You mentioned risks. So I think this industry, when it starts seeing its inflection point, rightly so, there will be players that enter. There will be international players that enter. There will probably be big, some of the big houses in India will get into it, and there should be more startups in this space.
You don't want to grow the pie by yourself.
Exactly, and competition makes you, keeps you honest, right? You do the right things. You keep, you're always paranoid, and you keep, innovating as a result. So I really welcome and embrace competition. Not in the next 2 years.
Not in the next 2 years.
Yeah, maybe down the line.
You still need that window.
Yeah.
So, the attributes that a CEO today must have, Mukesh, in your opinion?
You asking me to do Naresh's performance appraisal?
Yes, please, on live television.
Yeah. I think, I don't think what I'm going to say is new. I think people talk about this whole, telescope vision and microscope vision. I think CEOs absolutely require that, being able to get into any level of detail and being able to zoom out and look at a big picture and just straddle, up and down very effortlessly. I think second thing just boils down to building team, A stars always makes you look good. So as a CEO, if you can have 3-4 strong people around me, which I think, can easily replace me, I'm just lucky to be in this seat. That is a great place to be in. So for that, you need to be also very secure.
Okay. So the logo, how did that come about?
Yeah, if you remember, Leonardo Vinci's Vitruvian Man drawing. So it's that this person with the arms and legs spread out, and it was a 500-year-old picture that he hand drew with and bringing out the symmetry of human body and the perfect proportions. So I was aware of that picture for a long time when we were doing brainstorming on Cult logo. Somewhere that we wanted to depict that kind of chase for perfection in your physique and mind and so on. And I think someone suggested a picture, and it was then just a more visual, graphic rendition of that picture.
Okay.
In fact, we call it V-Man, Vitruvian Man, and we have our boardroom is called V-Man. So a lot of people probably don't even remember the story now, but yeah, that's the origin.
Okay, so since we're talking about the quest for perfection, from an individual point of view, since we're talking about health, what is the best milestone, the greatest milestone that you've been able to achieve in your fitness and health journey?
I've been trying to learn fasting for over 10 years now, with lots of small wins, setbacks, and so on. But just last 1 year, I have made tremendous progress with that, and I'm not going to science of all of that, but fasting something is part of all cultures for since ancient times.
Yeah.
And now I'm very comfortable, even if you're eating one meal a day for many days in a row, and I feel amazing. I think the kind of mental state I'm able to feel. I've never felt those. So it's like new experience, but I'm like thoroughly enjoying, or we can pitch fasting as a new longevity hack.
Fasting as the new longevity hack. So it's one meal a day or no meals a day? Are there days when there's no meals
I feel
a day?
I'm liberated, from food. I can eat 1 meal a day. I can eat 2 meals a day. I can eat in a 4-hour window.
Are you feeling as liberated from food as he is?
I need my 3 meals a day. And no, for me, it's about sports, and how I'm performing on the field is my indicator for my health and fitness. So I'm going to turn 40 this year, and I play with 20-somethings, and I'm able to last the whole time and compete. So for me,
Don't make 40 sound so old, by the way. Okay.
I mean, compared to a 22-year-old, it is.
I don't want to mention my age, but let's be careful.
40 is the new 20, just so you know.
Yeah. So I think for me, just being able to continue to play high intensity sports without having any major injuries.
ACL
exactly.
Injury.
None of that so far, at least. That for me is a good marker for my health and fitness.
Isn't that the most depressing? Sometimes people say, like, I'm feeling so bad, I'm going to turn 30 2 years from now. What do you even say to that?
I do roll my eyes now.
Yeah.
But what do you see around you? The average age of a startup founder today, very different from the time when you started, right? I mean, like they're early 20s
I think
now.
in India, yes, but I was in Silicon Valley for 10 years, so I was used to. I think it was the only way to be a startup founder in Valley, even back then, was be 20 something. I think because the ecosystem has matured so much, and people have seen so many stories being celebrated, so many IPOs, etc., returns being made, and also a lot of awareness. You have so many incubators, early stage funds, and so on. So in some ways, easier also, and new generation, like always, is bolder than the one that came before.
So I'll end by asking you a piece of advice that you have used through the course of your entrepreneurial journey that you would like to leave people with.
I think just continue to unlearn and learn. For someone like me who's been done things for last 27, 28 years, anytime, especially in a startup, thinking I know how it is done or I've arrived, that's when you start to go down. So just forgetting about most of the past and just staying grounded to keep learning and pretend like a 20-something, I think is the best thing I can do.
Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make
That's
it. Mukesh and Naresh, what an absolute pleasure. We wish you the very best of luck with your journey of creating not just India's, but one of the world's most valuable brands in this space. Thanks very much for your time. And we wish you all the very best in your personal as well as professional lives. Thanks for joining us here on the Young Turks podcast. Well, that's it then. Continue to stay curious, continue to learn, and continue to work on the learnings over the course of your entrepreneurial journey. Those are some lessons here from Mukesh and Naresh as they draw out the execution roadmap for where they would like CULT to be over the next 10 years. From all of us here on the team for now, many thanks for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. There's a lot more coming up right after this short break.